Well, I'm really thrilled by the fashion industry's increasing focus on sustainability and the potential for meaningful change. I think it's really exciting to see more brands and consumers embracing eco-conscious choices. And I think that the more they push for transparency in supply chains, the better off we will be collectively as a planet. And, I think I'm really also, what excites me is the industry's continued support for female empowerment, diversity and inclusivity.
Hello and welcome. I'm Elizabeth Formosa, the founder of Fashion Equipped and devourer of all things fashion, business and mindset. In this podcast, I'm speaking with thought leaders, change makers and entrepreneurs about the business side of fashion and everything in between. Fashion Business Mindset is your front row seat to real stories from designers, brands, entrepreneurs, makers and mentors. We'll discuss how to launch and grow a fashion business and give you insider access to the future of fashion. So let's do this together and ensure that you're equipped to make the fashion business your business. Welcome back to Fashion Business Mindset. My guest today is Vanessa Bell, a successful entrepreneur and advocate for sustainability, known for her expertise in fashion and agricultural industries. Vanessa started her career as a model, gracing the pages of high-end fashion publications and walking the runway for top-tier designers. However, her true passion lies in farming and sustainable fashion. Vanessa owns close to 118,000 acres of pristine land in Australia and is one of the few women in the world with a land holding more than twice the size of Paris. Vanessa has invested in the future by expanding her collection of hand-knitted Australian Merino wool baby knitwear to include luxury women's knitwear produced in Italy, which is all made from traceable and ethically farmed Australian merino yarn. The Vanessa Bell brand promotes sustainability by using naturally occurring, renewable and biodegradable Australian merino wool, and is committed to reducing microplastic pollution in the environment and inspiring future generations to make environmentally conscious decisions. Vanessa works closely with industry bodies such as the Woolmark Company, and she's a member of the Australian Fashion Council. In 2022, Vanessa was appointed as an advisor to the board of agtech company Zondi, where she focuses on provenance and authentication for wool. Beyond fashion, Vanessa is committed to large-scale mixed farming enterprise with active strategies to become a certified biodiversity and carbon farmer. Vanessa is a true visionary, demonstrating intuition, resilience, courage and integrity. I enjoyed every minute of this dynamic, inspiring chat with Vanessa, and no doubt you will too. So let's dive in. Vanessa, welcome to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's amazing to be here. I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you for joining me. Now, Vanessa, to set the scene, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and share some insights into your journey before founding your namesake label, Vanessa Bell?
Well, certainly. I had the pleasure of growing up in Middle Harbour in Sydney. While my life now is a long way from the water, I really did enjoy growing up sailing and being on the water as a child. And I attended school on the North Shore in Sydney, and then was on track to go to university, but my modelling career kind of, we had just a detour there. And so I was very fortunate to embark on a career in fashion at a very young age. In fact, I was 15 when I was taken to the streets of King's Cross to do a test photo shoot. In fact, I still have that Polaroid on my desk, and it's very dear to me. I had incredible management through Jane Cameron, and essentially I took that Polaroid to Harper's Bazaar and booked my first fashion shoot in Australia, and then on to Australian Vogue. So I had just an incredible sort of jump start at a very early age into the fashion business. And, you know, obviously here and overseas was able to work with some incredible designers. And then life took an unexpected turn. I fell in love with a farmer, and in 2013 left my role in media. I'd actually set up one of Australia's most successful independent media agencies, Slingshot. And to this day, I still have a connection with the business. And yes, I fell in love, and before we could blink, we were pregnant, and I moved to the farm with a baby on board, and and fell in love with not only my husband, but with sheep. And so my journey really, I think, with merino sheep, I always say, stemmed from my years in fashion. And I actually go back to that first fashion shoot with Australian Vogue. I was wearing a Jean-Paul Gaultier double-breasted woolen blazer with a woolen felted hat. And then I think, you know, being in the yards with our merino sheep, it was, you know, that's where it really started for me.
Wow. So much to unpack there. Vanessa, the age of 15, how did that start? Like, who recognized this talent in you to become, you know, a high fashion model? But the age of 15, quite young.
That's right. It is very young. It was actually a girlfriend of my mum's. And at the time I was busy playing tennis and, you know, swimming, and not really interested in anything to do with fashion. And look, you know, my parents were amazing. They were very clear that I had to finish my high school certificate, and also had amazing management. So I think that was a key thing. Really, it started I was working in school holidays as opposed to just sort of being plucked out of school.
Yeah.
And it was just tremendous. I immediately loved everything from exposure to beautiful fashion brands to the hair and makeup artists, and the creativity that is integral to being in the fashion business. So the textures, the colors, the lighting, I just was immediately, being a creative person, really drawn to that. So it was quite a start. And you know, I was really young actually to head off overseas. I was in Tokyo modeling when I was 18, in a really quite a challenging, different cultural environment. So it was quite the journey. But I do believe it's changed tremendously since I was modeling in the 90s.
Yeah.
And you know, I have to say I'm quite pleased I don't have, or didn't have to have, the pressure of social media. I think, you know, we were able to work for tremendous brands such as Carla Zampatti, or working with Maggie Tabra, or you know, a plethora of different designers and magazines here. But also I was very fortunate because I ended up working for designers such as Comme des Garçons and Valentino and Christian Dior and Giorgio Armani. So I think that was really fun for me, because at the time fashion models, particularly on the runway, were very tall, and I was really just on 5'10", so I was a pipsqueak. So it was sort of a time where I was fortunate to be able to do runway. And in terms of the construction and design, I was just in awe of designers and ball gowns like Dior, to actually be behind the scenes and to truly fall in love with, particularly with wool and how it draped, and how designers such as Yohji Yamamoto and Comme des Garçons were utilizing merino wool. So yes, that's where my love of wool started.
Sounds absolutely fabulous. We know it's not all runway and champagne. There's a lot of hard work in there, in what you've experienced, that dynamic experience and grounding you've had in the industry. So Vanessa, your journey, it's taken you from high fashion model to farmer to sustainable fashion designer completing this full circle.
That's
So
right.
can you share the Vanessa Bell brand story and the ethos and the values that you've really woven into your business model with us? And yeah, really take us through what you're setting out to achieve.
Absolutely. So the brand is really anchored in my advocacy for merino wool, and also my desire to really showcase a beautiful fashion product, a high fashion product that is offering an environmentally conscious solution for shoppers. So it's basically high fashion that literally doesn't cost the earth. And in terms of ethos, our ethos is really simple. So it's about enduring luxury with sustainable integrity. So we're able to really offer our clients the very best in quality, knowing that they're actually purchasing something that's an investment piece that can actually be plugged into their existing wardrobe that will stay there for years. But also, and this is the case also with my baby blanket range, that merino wool is fully biodegradable. So there are elements to that people can be confident that if it does end up in landfill, that it will truly biodegrade and not cause any harm to the environment. So in terms of furthering on our ethos, really, we're looking at obviously the finest in materials and craftsmanship. So looking at the very best in merino yarn and how it's spun and processed and dyed. And really, for me, that craftsmanship, also going back to my high fashion roots, was very important. Obviously, there's the commitment to sustainability and actively reducing microplastic pollution into our oceans. I think most people would be absolutely horrified to know just how many swimming pools of oil go into making synthetic disposable fashion. So, I know that there's been, and I'm really buoyed actually by the way the fashion business is moving to make the business more circular, to make less of a focus on that churn and burn, and actually looking at how we can reuse fashion in a different way. And in terms of our values, they're really anchored in courage, innovation, and integrity. So these values, I know corporate values can often seem to be quite wishy-washy, but for me, they really are incredibly important. And we're really purpose-led. So for us, it's all about connecting with our consumers in those values. Also, it's about accessibility. So, for example, taking back to our baby blanket range, being able to make our products valuable in the sense that they're family heirloom pieces, also providing value in the sense that they can be scaled through one of our new partners, which is one of Italy's most prestigious production houses, being Omi SRL, which, just as a side note, as you know, I've just been in Italy.
Yeah.
I found it just so gorgeous meeting Nonna because she still opens the factory every morning at 7 o'clock. And in fact, we had a really lovely moment where I was able to take her one of our handcrafted baby blankets, which is knitted by one of my ladies, and it takes 4 months to make. And to share that genuine love of the fiber and the respect for craftsmanship was really important. But yes, our values are very much around exceptional customer service, but also around education. So if I were to talk to most people in the city, they're not really aware about the benefits of wearing merino wool. And those benefits are quite extraordinary. So Woolmark in particular have done an outstanding job in positioning wool as a performance fiber, but it's also a luxury fiber. So it's antibacterial, I can never say this, microbial.
That's it.
It's fire resistant. It's basically fantastic. Anyone that's suffering from eczema, it's literally the only fiber they should be wearing, because it allows obviously the skin to breathe. It's thermoregulating. The benefits are endless, and I think that's really important. So yes, education and getting that through to our consumers is really important. So I think, going back to courage, innovation, integrity, that's really where we're sitting as a brand, utilising ag technology through innovation, and also the integrity of what we're delivering, for me, is really important.
I absolutely love it. As you just started talking about, your whole vision, first thing that comes to mind is purpose-led brand, considered approach, a slow approach to fashion, which I absolutely love. Before we dive into the product side, because you'd spoken about the 4-month kind of lead time with the blankets there, I want to dive into the product design and development kind of methodology. But I love your values, the courage, the innovation, and the integrity. Can you talk to us about the courage side? So you've really articulated the innovation and the integrity through your business model. What does the courage stand for, and how have you had to kind of step into, I guess, that, that mode of bravery to do what you've done to date, Vanessa?
Well, I think it truly comes from owning the power of my own story.
Mm-hmm.
So being in a situation where, particularly living on the land, it ranges from being in an environment where you have tiger snakes or king brown snakes, or being on a dirt road and I'm 5 hours from anywhere with a flat tire, or it's resilience. And I think it was something for me. Courage really came out of going through quite a severe drought, and also now looking down the barrel of yet another drought. In terms of the brand, is also about elevating out of really wanting to join the dots. So having the courage to take our consumers on that journey of, yes, I was in high fashion, yes, now I'm a farmer, but also having the courage to go back to my roots and being able to take people on that journey and to have that as part of the brand. And I think part of that courage is actually where the brand came from, in that my mentor, global brand builder, Tori Archibald, actually encouraged me to take a really courageous step, to step out of my comfort zone, to reach out to people on LinkedIn that normally I would never have had the courage to do. And I did that in the sense that Victoria Beckham had actually launched a remarkable collection, and it was so beautiful and very vibey and gorgeous knitwear. So I reached out to her design team, very much out of my comfort zone, requiring the courage to even type the letter to say, I am so in awe of what you've created. It is truly beautiful. And I did not expect the response. The response was, well, actually, we really love what you're doing. And, I'd said to her, if Victoria needed any help with wool, or really reaching out the branch. And she said, well, actually, we really love what you're doing. And a relationship was formed. And all of a sudden, I had Natasha Lennart, who is Victoria Beckham's ex-knitwear designer of 10 years, on board as my lead designer.
Wow.
So having the courage to step out of your comfort zone, I think, is so incredible. It's incredibly important as an individual, as a business leader. But as far as this brand is concerned, for me, it's every aspect. It's part of our customer. It's who she is as a woman. She has the courage to face adversity. She's resilient. She's able to, take on challenges. Life's not easy. It's difficult. And I hope that through this brand, we're able to showcase how we can make meaningful change. And there are branding elements that I can take you through that speak to this.
Absolutely love it. Well done to you for stepping outside of your comfort zone. And LinkedIn is how you got my attention. I was enjoying your storytelling, Vanessa. It was post after post, and I was engaged. I'm like, oh my God, I got to connect with this woman. She's amazing. So, and for you to make those connections, like with Victoria Beckham's team and her knitwear designer. And yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted. That return on resilience and taking those courageous steps, they're all part of being a business leader. So thank you for sharing that. There'll be no doubt many of our listeners very, very inspired by that action that you've taken, Vanessa. So I'd love to dive into the product now. So your collection provides, a green path to high fashion without sacrificing design or style. You've mentioned the heirloom baby blanket. So I'd love you to talk us through your design and development methodology and where you're going with your products in the future. You've now got a knitwear designer on board, and I know that you're working on women's wear. So love to get a little bit of an insight into where you'll be taking your collections over the coming years.
Absolutely. So in terms of the baby blanket range, we have a luxury, as I said before, handcrafted range. And I will keep this going for two reasons, because I think that they're remarkably beautiful. I feel it's really satisfying being able to have older ladies knitting for me, and because I feel that, women, particularly over the age of 60, are rarely seen or heard for their expertise. And so I feel this is really important. In terms of scale, though, basically working with OMI SRL, they were able to lift two of the stitches out of the original baby blanket range. And what we've done is we've incorporated those two stitches into the knitwear. So there's a really lovely crossover between the baby blanket range and into the women's knitwear. So there's an opportunity for us now to scale with having those two stitches, being able to produce those as baby blankets. And so we'll look, that's not really our core focus at the moment, but that's certainly moving into 24, 25. We'll be definitely expanding the baby blanket range, thanks to the incredible technicians at OMI. But yes, working with Natasha, as far as design and development methodology, it truly is such a joy to work with Natasha. She's incredibly professional. We have such a collaborative, open approach. And so it is very inclusive. It's been really wonderful because I've been able to draw on my fashion background of what I know works and what I know doesn't work, and what I know in terms of travel or being a businesswoman on the go. What does that look like as far as really opulent, beautiful knitwear? So it is a really comprehensive approach in terms of yarn selection, being able to look at lifestyle, our target woman, doing incredible competitive analysis across the world, sketches, knit downs. One of the things I love about working with Italian craftsmanship is literally all of the nonnas sitting around after a knit down and washing them and testing them and seeing the spring back of the fibre, working with fit models, all of the different samples, and the tech packs. But I think ultimately part of that methodology sits very much around sustainability and eco-credentials. So if I look at going to Italy, it was incredibly important that we partner with mills that really ticked all of those eco-credential boxes. So it's driven by trust, a shared commitment to delivering excellence, and I think it's ongoing. I don't think anything is static in terms of design and methodology. It's something that we've actually just presented to Woolmark in London and just been ecstatic by their response, because they've just been so incredibly supportive. So it is a lot to kind of bring to life over. So it was wonderful to be able to meet Natasha finally this past July in Italy and finally connect. And to feel those samples in real life for the first time was just a tremendous experience. So our current products really are, as I said, we have the existing luxury baby blanket range, and the autumn winter debut 24 collection will launch with a launch event in March, which is super exciting. And that collection will include 10 pieces. So that's 8 standalone women's knitwear sweaters and 2 scarf accessories. So, and as I said, those signature stitches being the heart leaf and puff wheat stitches coming from the baby blanket range. I have to say, I became so incredibly emotional actually meeting the technicians, these gorgeous Italian girls at the mills. And, given that really it's an incredible honor, because these mills really only have customers or clients that are, Burberry or Chanel or Balenciaga, or they're all amazing, huge clients, and really to have the door open up to me and to see these technicians, it was quite lovely, because their response was, oh, we're only really used to dealing with really high, tier clients. And so to see my passion for what they were doing, it was just a really, generally, that sentiment of they were as happy as I was, because they often don't get that kind of response. But the puffweed in particular, in terms of the scarves, are just so divine, so luxurious, and I can't wait to get you in one.
Oh, it's so exciting. Vanessa, just on that point about the door opening up to you, how did that door open up to you? Because it's quite a unique position you're in. As you said, they're working with, established, high-tiered brands, and here you are still in that startup journey, and your business model is growing and evolving, and you've been able to step into that world. How did that come about?
I absolutely know it's through Natasha. So Natasha is so highly regarded globally as one of the world's most talented knitwear designers. She's also just a gorgeous, gorgeous person. And she was really, speaks so highly of working with Victoria Beckham. She stepped away from that business because she's really wanting to work for a purpose-led brand that is anchored in sustainability. So I think for us, for her, it was a conversation with these mills, particularly, so we're partnering with Lana Cadata and Telegno 1900. Both of these mills are located in Biella in Italy. To give some context, Lana Cadata is a family-run operation that's been operating since 1663. And also Telegno, incredible. Lana Cadata is different in the sense that they're a full scouring, spinning, dyeing facility, whereas Telegno picks up from the tops right through to dyeing. So where I think there was a unique opportunity that others potentially would not have had that door opening, certainly it was through Natasha, but more so from a wool growing perspective. Philip, my husband, Philip, and I have the capacity to grow superfine merino wool at our property in the southern tablelands of New South Wales. And so Lana Cadata were very interested in a possible relationship where I would be a fully integrated brand, meaning I'm growing my own wool, not only for my knitwear, but potentially for other clients such as Chanel. So it's something that's yet to be growing. Wool is challenging to the specifications that are required, but it's certainly that's something we can do in the remit of our family, given that the Bell family have been growing merino wool in one of the finest wool growing districts anywhere in the world for 120 years. So it's certainly something that we can work to do. And in fact, I was given a tremendous insight from Lana Cadata's CEO, Massimo, in that he has actually stopped buying Australian wool. And the reason why he's done that is that Australian growers are not RWS certified. So basically, from every aspect, if you are as a brand, and I know this will play out particularly in the States in 2 years' time, if you are not meeting those eco credentials, you simply won't be able to sell your product at that level. And so for us, there was a really unique opportunity to have that door opened, yes, but then to expand on that relationship to say, well, potentially I can then be my own, supply my own wool while also then meeting those eco credentials, but also potentially also having my own biodiversity project to become carbon neutral.
Yeah, so it's basically end to end, and you're going to have a lot of control over the whole supply chain. Could we break that down a little bit further? I'd love for our listeners, I'd love to kind of step them through the whole responsible business pathway. And you've mentioned so many different dynamics, from the raw material to visiting the mill, the accreditation, working with a professional, of course, such as Natasha. So we know that you're looking at 100% carbon neutrality, and you're currently in the process of becoming a Woolmark licensee, and everything else you've just shared.
Yes.
For those who are at the beginning of the journey, perhaps Vanessa, already on the journey and finding it complex terrain to navigate, What are the non-negotiables for you as you go through, setting up that supply chain or the operational side of your business? And what are you've mentioned some of the accreditations. Are there any others on the manufacturer side? So you've got from raw materials, but then also the actual production side of your garments as well.
That's right. So look, I think in terms of that responsible business pathway, for me, it's firmly anchored in mindset. So I feel like that's where people need to start. So our goal, for example, is to be a business where we're looking at being ethical, sustainable, environmental, but we're also meeting community objectives. So it's embedded in our business. It's not in conflict with our business. But there's still a desire to be profitable. So I think you've really got to start with that mindset about what is it that you're really trying to achieve here, because there is so much greenwashing going on. And I think if it's really not a part of who you are, I think you need to have a really deep discussion with your team around what's important to the team and what are you trying to achieve as a business. So in terms of the manufacturing, 100%. So they have to meet, for example, both mills are on two of the most pristine Italian rivers, just gorgeous. And particularly Tirreno is literally right on this amazing river. Not one drop goes back into that river unless it has been completely treated. And so their business really sits with understanding that if they don't meet those credentials, they can't operate. So for us as a wool grower, it's very important, for example, my sheep non-mulesed. So for those that are not familiar with the term, mulesing is to prevent fly strike. And it's where basically the skin of the sheep is exposed to prevent infestation. And chemical treatments have come a really long way. There's a bunch of different processes that farmers can now take. And I know that here in Australia, there's old school thought. And I understand that many people still prefer, when particularly you're talking about 6,000 or 7,000 head of sheep, it's easier to treat for fly strike. But I think we've got to go back to, what does the consumer want? The consumer does not want to buy a baby blanket or one of my sweaters if they think for 1 second that animal has come into contact with how they perceive it to be not ethical or causing harm to that animal. So that's really important. Regenerative farming is also really important to us. So making sure that our paddocks are clean, our animal welfare is top notch. All of those things come into play and the thing that really hit me while I was there, it actually was funny. We were walking around one of the mills and I realized I was just getting just another fashion brand coming to see the mill tour. And so I pulled out my phone and I started showing the technicians my sheep and being in the shed and penning up and our shearers and what actually happens in an Australian shearing shed. Oh my goodness, the attitude just changed dramatically. It was all of a sudden, oh wow, okay, you are supplying us with the wool. Now Australia's supplied Italy with wool for years and years and years. And it's just it's only happened recently that Australian wool growers have not been appropriately certified. And for me, it's a process thing. I don't think it's so much that Australian farmers are doing something incorrectly. I think it's something that can be easily fixed. But it was just lovely to see that instant respect of, we are all working together. You might be on the other side of the world, but we are not. Essentially, we have been working in silos, and it's important that we all come together to work as a team. So in terms of other businesses that are out there that are wanting to go down that fashion responsible business pathway, I would suggest having a look at the holistic approach, getting in contact with your manufacturers, having discussions. Why did I get on a plane and go halfway around the world? It's important to me. It's really important to me. And I think if you can demonstrate that to your clients, that this is really important to you, they'll respect you for that and they'll want to buy into the journey. So yes, there's the RWS certification. Essentially, for me to be able to grow wool that is fit for purpose is fabulous. To be also one of the world's fully integrated eco brands. For me, that's really important. I think that that's, there's an opportunity there to do things differently. I'm also an advisor of an ag tech company called Zondi. So Zondi, I'm not sure if you've heard of, but it's an incredible piece of technology. It provides real-time verification for food and fiber. So this is technology that's multispectral that can be basically used to scan different fleeces, which will provide really accurate assessment of the background of the fiber. So that has all sorts of benefits. But it also works with traceability. So, for example, going back to my consumer, I'm then able to say, well, this was in our shed. This is actually what was scanned. You're gaining as much control. And I think that is the key here for all businesses looking at, when you're talking about ethical, sustainable, and environmental, when you're taking that into a community, if you're able to actually back up what you're saying, that's incredibly important. But also I've just partnered with a company called Climber, and as part of being dedicated to carbon neutrality. So we will certainly plug in. You can basically plug in Climber into, if you have a WordPress or a website. But basically what this does is it enables us to offer our clients at absolutely no cost to the consumer. They're able to choose one of 3 projects. And in doing so, it's basically a carbon offset program. So we're demonstrating to our consumer that we're dedicating our brand's commitment to climate change while we're also obviously then improving brand loyalty. But for me, I'm taking it that extra level where we're looking at locking off about 3,000 hectares of pristine rainforest and heavy timbered forest on my cattle station located on the mid-north coast, Kuplackarapa station. So if I can lock that off as a biodiversity project, potentially I can have every aspect of that covered. And that's different. It hasn't been done before. And I think, when you go to bed every night and you hear the forest and you realize how many heartbeats are in that forest. It's funny, people always say, don't you feel lonely living on a remote cattle station? And I said, if you listen to the forest, you can't be lonely. We have this huge responsibility, and most people in the city don't have access to that type of nature. So if I can do something to leverage that, to be able to keep that for future generations.
Thank you for sharing all of that. That was just so dynamic. Everything that you are doing, Vanessa, I think for some of our listeners, it would be quite overwhelming. It's like, oh my gosh, every single touch point you've really considered, and you're elevating what you're, I guess, setting new standards as well. You're breaking some new ground here. What's a day on the land like for you? Are you part of, a day in the life of, living on a farm, in addition to building this beautiful fashion brand?
Absolutely. So it does vary. We have different properties. We have an outback station, which we do organic wheat, and our property down south for cattle and merino. But our homestead is Kuplackarapa Station. And to answer your question, it just varies. I mean, the ability to operate from your top paddock to take your product to the world globally, I think that goes back to my values of courage, innovation, and integrity. I think that's really important. But what do I do? Absolutely, it depends where we are. If we're down south, I might be penning up sheep. Not a huge fan, to be honest, around drenching. I prefer not to drench or fence, but definitely mustering. And, we can, in fact, that's one of my favorite things to do, is to go mustering with my husband and my 9-year-old. I have a 9-year-old boy that has a completely different accent to me. He's like a 1920s outback truck driver. And, even yesterday we were in our back country checking on, we've been doing some cool burns. We've been looking at, we might muster 2,000 or 3,000 head of cattle. We might move weaners across the river. So I find that really extraordinary, to be in Italy in the thick of things one week, and then to be on horseback with the dogs around, barking and chasing up cattle. It's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege, and it's not lost on me.
Well, it makes complete sense now why there's this beautiful grounding and connection to nature and nurture that's coming through the ethos of your brand. Vanessa, let's talk about your customer. Who is the Vanessa Bell customer? Obviously, with the transition from the heirloom baby blankets into women's wear, who is she? And how are you going to engage her in the brand as you build over the next few years?
We've certainly got a really robust understanding of who our customer profile is. I think she is a really passionate woman, and she's also about driving positive change. And I think that she definitely values merino wool as a sustainable, beautiful product. And I think she also prefers really elevated designs, but she's looking for investment so that she can actually, express herself with casual elegance. So you can basically put on one of our tabards and a beautiful crisp shirt and get on a flight, or you can, she's just about to step into a meeting, or she's, basically at home having a cozy cup of tea on the couch. So she's flexible. She's not someone that's sort of rigid and stuck. And she's also seeking quality and trans-seasonal wear. So I think that that's really important. Prioritizing simplicity with a touch of luxury. And I think it's that need to be versatile. She's chic, it's effortless attire. So I feel like if she puts on a Vanessa Bell sweater, she's elevating for any occasion with luxurious style. And I think, in terms of nurturing meaningful connections with our customers, I also feel very important. Like for me, it's about that advocacy piece that if you're to put on one of my sweaters, if for some reason, I would be absolutely devastated if it just didn't exceed every expectation. That's where we're really trying to make people feel like this is that advocacy piece that they can then, talk to a girlfriend. This is amazing. You should feel this. Have a feel of this gorgeous wool. It's very much about advocacy and the power of connection. And I think having a consistent presence on social media, I think that's really, really important. And being able to have the support of amazing companies such as Woolmark behind us, so that we've got that advocacy. But in terms of really building that meaningful connection, what we've done is we've actually built in a chevron branding element, which again is lifted from the baby blanket range. And this visual icon is also about taking action. So being a part of the solution and not the problem. So it's very subtle, but it might be just on the sleeve. It might be at the nape of the neck. This chevron branding icon is really very important to the brand, because I feel like nurturing that meaningful connection and giving that sense of hope and direction. There has been so much doom and gloom in the world, and I really feel like this chevron signifies hope and energy and a clear direction. So it's really where luxury and sustainability coexist. And to my point previously, I feel that people have almost felt guilty about purchasing high fashion or being. And now I feel like there's an opportunity to say, well, these chevrons, it's not just about high fashion. It's almost, it's my way. It's a graffiti, if you like, of being able to spot it walking down the street and say, oh, okay, there's a Vanessa Bell sweater. It's integrating that chevron into the garment, but it's also integrating that into the mindset of our customers. So really nurturing that. As much as they believe in us, we believe in them. It's a mutual exchange of energy. And I think that's where people really miss the mark with their consumer, is not understanding that it is that mutual exchange of energy. It's a mindset. So if I can shift that mindset to making wool a conscious choice for a healthier life and a healthier planet, then that's what for me, that's success.
Oh, absolutely love it. It really is shopping your values, buying into those investment pieces, as you said, the advocacy, the storytelling, the connection to the origin of this product. It's not just another luxury piece. And I certainly relate to, as you mentioned, there's elements of feeling guilty shopping fashion, whether it's luxury or any type of fashion. So supporting purpose-led brands and those who, as you said, you are at the forefront of change with everything that you're doing with your business model, and that's only going to grow over time. I think it's just a beautiful journey to be part of. So thank you for sharing that. Now, Vanessa, you've already touched on meaningful partnerships and collaborations and the community element. Is there anything else that you'd like to share around that and the actions and the achievements that you have really been able to work through to date?
In terms of actions and achievements, I firmly believe that this is ongoing. For every person out there, we have to continue learning. I think this is so key. So really, particularly when you live in rural, regional Australia, it can be quite isolating. So I think one of my greatest achievements really has been around building community and being involved with a global community. So being able to, as I said, take my top paddock to a global marketplace. And I think that has been really successful. Looking back to being in modeling, in the fashion business as a model and working with some of those clients, I think has really given me an understanding it's set me up for success. So in terms of action, that is now, it's an ever evolving thing, but I think working with clients at that caliber has certainly changed how I view things. And I think not so much an achievement, but more so a secret weapon. I think, for me, very intuitive, really rely on my intuition. And as I said, resilience, courage. One of my stockmen, we were in our backcountry and he's just a gorgeous, gorgeous guy. He has been on horseback since he was 15. And there was just a huge snake in front of us, and my horse wasn't thrilled about it. And he just turned to me and he said, if something doesn't scare you good and proper, you're not trying hard enough. Meaning, if literally daily, if something doesn't really put you out of your comfort zone. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. I think so many people are just anchored in feeling comfortable. And if they get out of that mindset, you'll be surprised with what you can deal with. I remember the first time I had a flat tire on, an outback road, thinking, just went into complete city mode. And I thought, for goodness sake, get your act together, get the spare out, deal with it. And if you take that attitude, guess what? You can do it. It's the conditioning. And I feel like for me, part of the story of female empowerment is, as an achievement, I would really like to change the narrative of what it does mean to be a woman in agriculture and to be a role model for gender equality. One of the greatest achievements, I believe, has been in buying Kupla Karapa Station. So my husband and I purchased the property as equal partners. It is the largest land holding on the eastern fall of the Great Dividing Range. And in terms of freehold, it's the largest property on the eastern seaboard. So it's that is freehold. So I think, to be able to do that as a woman, and it's been just fraught. I mean, the cattle market's gone through the floor. There's never been a tougher time to be in ag as far as what's happening with the market.
Yeah.
But I really believe, where there's challenges, there's opportunity. It's all about being in a great team. So my husband and I are amazing friends, such a great team. We really rely on each other. And I suppose that also comes back to, looking at, as we first started, everything that I've done together, he's always been right behind me, but it's been about backing myself. So again, creating one of Australia's most highly respected luxury baby brands, I feel has been a really great achievement, because, many people would move to the bush and think, oh, well, I'm not sure what to do now. But I think there is untapped opportunities all around us. And if it comes back to what you're truly passionate about, I don't feel like this is work. I think my husband's I'm dragging him back into merino wool, kicking and screaming, but he is a proper cattleman. But yes, anyway, I feel like there's some of my achievements and all of those actions that happen on a daily basis, particularly living on the land, the importance of taking time to speak to people, the importance of listening. So not only listening to other people, but listening to the land, listening to the animals, having that opportunity to truly see what's happening around you. There's so much to be, the gifts, they're all gifts. We just need to listen.
Well, they are phenomenal achievements. Vanessa, just for perspective for our listeners, the amount of land that yourself and your husband own, can you, I remember seeing a post where you'd compared it to the size of Paris.
Yes, well, actually, our property is over twice the size of Paris. So it's 24,500 hectares.
And it's just hard to actually take that in. So it's a phenomenal amount of land, and the responsibility that comes with that.
It is, and it is completely overwhelming. There are different parts to the property I'll never see. I actually last weekend stumbled across, actually again, our stockman, he hasn't been there his whole life, and he'd mentioned this waterfall, and he said, oh, if you're ever out mustering, you should just. So there I am with my work boots, slipping and sliding down through this gorge surrounded by ground snakes and holes and goodness knows what, down to this incredible gorge of just pristine. And again, our river, our house backs onto the Kuplakarapa River, and it's a really pristine, beautiful, constantly flowing, big river. And I was putting a roast dinner in the oven the other night, looked out the window and saw the platypus playing just below the house. Or it is remarkable. There's so much there that I will never see. But yes, it's hard to put it into context. Yeah. But as I said, compared to properties up north or in the Northern Territory or Northwest Queensland, we're tiny. We're absolutely tiny. But in terms of vaulted mountains and east coast of Australia, it is large.
Yeah, it sounds awe-inspiring. And I loved what you mentioned earlier about, growth. I prefer to do it without snakes in front of me, to be honest. but I can totally relate. I mean, I think as, just as humans, we're kind of looking for the comfort zone, but that's not where the magic happens. As we all know, the age-old saying is, the magic happens totally outside of our comfort zone. And I love how you said, you're all about demystifying that. We have to get uncomfortable to grow. And again, that return on resilience, very hard, especially with yourself working on the land, but also applying, that rationale to business. Very hard to grow a business without having those qualities, or as you said, that mindset and that tenacity to get it done and to, deal with those challenges and break down the barriers and keep moving forward.
That's right. I think so. If you do make a mistake, that's okay. I think that's the other thing. I think I remember being lost in a paddock, and our helicopter pilot, who was mustering some stock, came down over the top of me and got on the CB radio, and he said, Ness, I think you lost. And I thought, yes, I am so lost. I have absolutely, so I think just those sort of moments in life when you are lost, they will come, and that's okay. And I think that's when you've got community and other people to press into.
Yeah, absolutely. None of us can do any of this alone, that's for sure. So, Vanessa, you've got some huge goals, a huge, amazing or inspiring vision for your brand. Let's talk about sales and marketing. So you've had some traction in the business already with what you've, with your baby blanket collection, and then what you're looking to do with your launch in March. How are you going to take this brand to the world? If we talk about sales channels, for example, across online and wholesale and the international market, what is your vision for taking this brand out to market?
Absolutely. So in terms of online, so our online store is vanessa-bell.com. And with that, we're actually, we've just had tremendous support with Woolmark behind us. So Woolmark have also expressed that they would like our store to be on their store. So it will be, quite a driven process through Google Ads and so on to be able to, and the advocacy of going through other different social platforms. So driving that online store, absolutely. In terms of wholesale, we're very much set up for a wholesale registration process, and we are looking to partners at the moment. In fact, that infrastructure it's not just, we're very careful around who we will align with, because they have to also meet our eco credentials and our desire for excellence and customer service. It's not just, I'm not just looking for wholesale agents per se. In fact, I was so impressed with one of your podcasts I was listening to with regards to the whole business model. I thought that was really agile and so clever. International, for this debut collection, we're focusing on Australia, although we will absolutely be looking at wholesale partnerships, primarily in the USA and the UK. And so particularly out of London, we've had tremendous response around what that might look like. But again, I think for us, as we're launching, it's very much just about focusing on getting it right here and then expanding. But in terms of marketing, as I said before, it's always evolving, and it's always rich in imagery and storytelling. So I firmly believe that one of the joys about living where I live and being able to show people behind the scenes, and that might be, as I said recently, going to Italy and showing them a behind the scenes tour of two of the most prestigious spinning mills in the world. That's not something that people have access to. So being able to really talk about, leveraging my journey from high fashion to becoming a farmer and showcasing the brand's commitment to sustainability and really highlighting that connection between wool, fashion, and the environment. That's really important as far as a marketing strategy. There's the educational content. So we've been really blessed. Again, Woolmark has provided access for me to be able to use all of their digital assets online. So I have some already on my website, which speaks to the benefits of merino wool and the composite the construction of the fibre and how it benefits people, talking about traceability and quality. The made in Italy piece is really important for me from a sales and marketing strategy. I think that's, to be able to capitalise on made in Italy, it's basically speaking to our dedication to craftsmanship and quality. So that really rich history, I think, is something that, as far as all of the different channels of media and marketing, the one thing that's going to tie all of that together is that buy-in to that level of craftsmanship. And again, all that photography and visual. So actually I had Jason Lowe, who's one of London's most highly regarded photographers, fly out from London to Italy to shoot our tour of the mills. Again, I feel it's incredibly important, and this will come as the samples will land from Italy. Again, I have Wujed here in Sydney, an incredibly talented photographer, fashion photographer, and we will do all of the flat lays, e-commerce flat lays, and then a fashion shoot, so that we're not just another country brand. It will definitely have a high fashion lens with those visuals. So really speaking to the luxury of the knitwear. Influencer collaborations to an extent, but I don't really see that's where our brand sits. For me, it's more about community. I'd much prefer to see you in one of our sweaters, or, any one of my dear girlfriends that can genuinely speak to, this is how it feels, this is how it makes me feel. Those testimonials, the true passionate testimonials, for me are really important. And speaking about the timeless design and also keynote speaking events. So again, for me, we are not another fashion brand in the traditional sense. For me, this, as I said before, is anchored in the fact that I am a champion of Australian merino wool. So whether or not that's speaking at global events, whether or not it's an audacious goal, but I would like to be on the Australian Wool Board. It's about doing what I can for the Australian Fashion Council to really speak to the excellent things that they're doing with regards to the circular economy. They're the sorts of things that I feel, in terms of a marketing strategy, all come together. And obviously you've got content and plan strategies in place that go out over a timeline, and you've got key dates where you're obviously pushing sales and things like that. And that's traditional retail sort of strategies. But for me, this is about elevation. This is about getting that conversation out to drive climate change as a climate change solution. So that, to me, it's like, and I shouldn't say this given I'm about to embark on this journey, but I feel like it's almost a secondary piece. I feel like the conversation around change is leveraging the knitwear.
Yeah.
It's the other way around.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You really took us on a journey there. So when you launch in March, what will we expect? So are we going to see Vanessa Bell on a runway? Like, how will this actually manifest into going to market in March?
Excellent question. For me, it's community-based. So it will be ideally, a restaurant that is really beautiful, that is also around provenance, so beautiful food, beautiful wine. It's the coming together of fibre and food in that space, because that's more important to me. But it's more so around community. It's a celebration. It's about bringing together, having someone, I mean, it could be the CEO of Walmart, or it could be Natasha, or it could be, but we will have a keynote speaker, including myself, to be there to discuss the brand over and above just the gorgeous knitwear. And then obviously we'll either have, models walking through the room, or that's all, from our PR team's perspective, yet to be fleshed out. But it's very much in terms of the event itself, with media there and to be able to amplify the message. Absolutely. But it's community based. It's the community behind me that have encouraged me, shared my vision, been able to amplify my voice as you have. And I am so grateful to you for doing so, because this is what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to achieve genuine, authentic relationships that can be built on. And, it's a trust, it's a mutual exchange of energy. And so when people come to the event, I want them to be able to be part of that.
I absolutely love it, Vanessa. So powerful, so powerful. I'm so excited for you. I just cannot wait to see what you do in this next phase of your business. It's just, I love the heartbeat of the business. It's just beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, Vanessa, no doubt that your role is dynamic and demanding at times. I think we've absolutely heard that through this conversation. I ask all of my guests this question because we know that we can't do this solo. What practices, routines, or support systems do you have, Vanessa, that help you with mindset and well-being to really help you operate at this optimal level?
Certainly. So I think really it starts with Philip, my husband, as far as support. He and I are an absolute team. Like, we've literally, we can go through, we have gone through all sorts of, like, dust storms, you name it, we're 100% together. But in terms of personal power, I really gain that through a ritual of being very present first thing in the morning. So that is a gratitude practice where I'm really, and it's not gratitude in the, gee, I'm really grateful for X, Y, Z. It's something that I intuitively really feel, like, what truly am I grateful for? What am I learning today? And then setting forward what those intentions are for the day. So I think setting yourself up for very clear intentions takes a lot of the fear out of the day, and panic and anxiety about trying to get things done. So if you're really clear about what your purpose is, that I find really helpful. And, I think I would also say, actually, I wrote a book called Self-Care Craft in lockdown. And what I was trying to do is demonstrate the importance of putting a process aside. And it's about self-care in the sense that it's not a luxury or an indulgence. It's absolutely discipline. Self-care is discipline. It means taking the time to put yourself first so that you're able to care for and take care of the ones that you love. And so for me, that is, no surprise here, knitting, knitting or writing. I love mowing the lawn. So for context, our lawn usually takes about 2 hours to mow on a big commercial lawnmower. So I love that, being able to just switch off and the smell of the fresh grass. And, I think leaning into my family and my friends, but that support system from a business perspective, I really feel comes from community. And again, I go back to just things like, through the drought, being able to reach out to people and build that community online is really powerful. So yes, I mean, in a nutshell, I love horse riding, anything outside, really, being in nature.
I love how you said self-care is a discipline. I've never really thought about it that way, but I feel it. I feel, I have to schedule it into my diary. I've got to really make it happen, but I've never heard it articulated in that manner. And I guess, we can be so disciplined about other things in our life, the routine and business and scheduling meetings and all of the dynamic things we have to do as leaders in our business. But then often when it can come to ourselves, it kind of, might drop down lower and lower on the list. But I love that mindset that self-care is a discipline, and we really do need to be prioritizing it to be able to do all of these other amazing things, and especially with what you've got on your plate over the coming months and years.
Definitely. I think it's, in a nutshell, I think for me, it's when your mind and body come together in pursuit of a common goal. So whether or not that's, for example, knitting, where you're able to make something that's really beautiful and gift that, you then get the added bonus of how that makes you feel. But the self-care is definitely pencil it in 3 times a week. It's not just exercise. It's just genuinely doing something that at a deep level allows you to care for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's challenging. It's not easy.
It's not. I can definitely vouch for that. But that's absolutely beautiful. Some great advice there for our listeners. Now, Vanessa, in closing, my final question to you is, what excites you about the future of the fashion industry?
Well, I'm really thrilled by the fashion industry's increasing focus on sustainability and the potential for meaningful change. I think it's really exciting to see more brands and consumers embracing eco-conscious choices. And I think that the more they push for transparency in supply chains, the better off we will be collectively as a planet. And I think I'm really also what excites me is the industry's continued support for female empowerment, diversity, and inclusivity. And I think fashion is really unusual. It has the power to challenge the norms and stereotypes. And it has done so for years. I mean, as I was in Milan recently, and I went to see the Giorgio Armani exhibition, and I was just thrilled to look back through the decades. And in fact, some of the imagery that was coming through in this incredible exhibition, I'm not sure if it would have been able to be presented through today's lens. But I found it so exciting because it was so raw, and it really did challenge the stereotypes of the day. And so I would really encourage people to do that, to just keep pushing the boundaries. And I think I'm just really excited to see more women making their mark in really different facets of the industry. I think that's, to me, something that's really, really exciting.
Oh, Vanessa Bell, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your outstanding journey so far and your story with us. We cannot wait to see what you do next with your beautiful purpose-led brand. We will be following your journey, and I cannot wait to get my hands on one of your gorgeous pieces of knitwear. So thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. I'm so grateful for your time and for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vanessa. Thank you so much for listening to the Fashion Business Mindset podcast. We'd love to keep connected. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Fashion Equipped. And if you'd like to find out more about our Start Your Fashion Business program and your mentor collective, head to our website fashionequipped.com.au. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with others, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review. Let's do this together. Let's make the fashion business your business.
This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.